Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who grew up in a real estate family, spent years watching his brother figure out the high stakes side of the mortgage business, and is now building a branch of his own in one of the most competitive markets in the country, while figuring out how to keep momentum going with 3 daughters under the age of 6 at home. Bill Pendley, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hi, how are you, Connor? Thank you for having me, by the way.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to have you. And I can't imagine what life at home is like with 3 little girls running around. I personally have 2 girls. They're all grown up, 17 and 15 now, 20 months apart. I remember the chaos of that.
Yeah.
But what is that like these days, man? Like, what's life like for you?
Oh, it's a wild ride. And to be honest, at the time we're recording this, my wife is hacking up along with a very, very bad sickness. And so I've been having to kind of juggle, being a parent that's helping her out. But I did write her a love note today and said, hey, listen, if I could take the sickness from you, I would. And she was appreciative. But we have a 6-year-old Jordan. I dropped her off at school this morning. She's got type 1 diabetes. So there's a whole element of like watching that. I mean, when we dropped her off, she was low. So you got to be careful of that. And fortunately, we have really good nurses at the school, so they were monitoring it. That's a whole different level of just parenting in itself. And then we have a 2-year-old it's like me. So I always told my wife, I said, listen, if they're like you, we're going to be fine. If they're like me, we're in trouble. Gigi, which Gianna, she's exact like me. We lost her on the Disney cruise last year for about 15 minutes. That was like a life shattering moment where we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And we finally found her. But, and then we have a 6-month-old Gabrielle. So it's just a wild ride, but it's fun at the same time. I absolutely love being here. I always say that, for me, I'm just happy to be here and I'm thankful. So the attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful. Living a life with daughters is awesome, man. They say the happiest families have daughters. No offense to anyone else listening, but that's just science.
Well,
anyway.
And by the way, that's my why. I don't know if I didn't even show you this, but I have my family on the interior of my coat.
Well, that's amazing, man.
Yeah. So it just is a constant reminder of why I do what I do. It's because before I got married and had kids, I was just kind of going through life, doing pretty decent at the mortgage industry, but not really, not hunting. And right now I'm in a hunting mode, and that's a different level. I feel like, just because it's not about me anymore. It's about my family.
Yeah. It does add an element of pressure to it all, right?
Gosh, yes.
Well, hey, man, I know you came from a real estate family. Your brother ran your company. You spent years watching him sort of navigate mortgage at a really high level. What is like the most important thing that you learned from watching him doing all of that and kind of going through, and what did you learn that you didn't learn through like coaching or training programs that you've been in since?
I think when I look back at, starting with my brother, which was back in like 2000, maybe 1999, because I was with one company for about a year and then I came over to his. I got really good training on the FHA, Govy types of deals, but his shop was more of a vanilla type of lender, rate sensitive. We were a broker at the time. We had 4 or 5 loan officers. And I just remember that was also back in the day where the BC loans, I don't know if a lot of people out there may not understand what that means, but those are like the non-conforming portfolio. We're starting to see a little bit of that, but not to the degree that we had back in the day. There's terms like NINAs and stated income and all these other loans that were coming through our doors that were wanting our business. And he would literally stop them at the door and says, that's not who we are. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a protection over our company. So I felt like his company was like a David and Goliath story throughout the whole history of me working with him. Even during 2008, when there were bigger companies that were falling, and it was just like, I just remember it was just like these bombs that were going off with lenders that were just imploding, and we just stayed afloat. In fact, we actually grew at that point up to about, probably 25 loan officers. And that was probably the peak of our our growth at that time. But it was a small to mid-level, broker, and then we turned into a banker. And that's when he said things got really, really high stakes because his money was on the line. So he made good money, but there was high risk. And so I've seen him come in the doors so many times. Just he didn't think he was showing it, but I knew that he was stressed out, and to watch my brother, who's 13 years older than me, go through that, I grew a lot of respect. I mean, when we were working together at the time, he wouldn't think this, but I did have a lot of respect for him at the time. But we were brothers working together. Family dynamics when you're working in a company is a whole different story, and it just can be pretty emotional. So now we have better conversations now than when we were working together. But I still, as I grow my branch, I'm using a lot of the things that he's told me and drove into me to my loan officers. So it's funny, every day, it doesn't matter. Every day I say something that Dave would say when I was getting trained by him early on.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. I can't imagine. I've got a brother myself. He's older. There's no way we could work together. Sorry, Colin, but I can't imagine that dynamic. But you did mention when we spoke, before getting on the episode here, that your brother did give you some advice in the past that was really helpful, and that you went through a scenario where a branch left and you had the decision: do I follow? Do I stay? And your brother said, don't be a lemming, don't follow the pack. What did that kind of teach you about trusting your own read on a situation?
Yeah, that'll be one of those moments in life that I'll never forget, just because I was at a crossroads. I didn't know. There's been a few times, and after 27 years, there's been a few times I've been at a crossroad, and this is one of them where it was a pivotal moment for me to say, okay, it's enough following, and it's time to be a leader. So I had a decision to make, whether I wanted to build my own company like he did, or find a company that I could align with, that would allow me to kind of spread my wings and do what I wanted to do. And so I chose the latter. But it was kind of crazy, because I just remember that being it was a one sentence, but it was very bold. And it was almost like God talking to me, like saying, hey, listen, stop, be patient, because you don't have to move. I wasn't forced to move. Everything on my level was fine, but the executive level of the company that I was with, it shattered a lot of people's lives. And so they just spread and left and went to different companies. But there's a lot of people following that. And I go, I have to do this for my family. So once again, going back to the family, I have to do this. I have to pull up my bootstraps and literally put on my big boy shoes and make an adult decision. And it was the best decision I've ever made, because of the fact that, I look back and go, wow, we're at like 300% growth this year just in the branch. And if I didn't make that decision, I probably would be jumping ship to a couple different companies, because that's what happened in the branch.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. I mean, I wanted to ask that question because I know a lot of people that will listen to this episode are going to face that same crossroads at some point in their career, whether it's now or down the road, or maybe they've been through it in the past. And I just think it's important, whenever you're in that scenario, to really take personal inventory of your own situation and trust your gut in that scenario. You do see a lot of big group moves in this industry, and teams go from one place to another, and and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's always kind of perplexed me at how often that happens.
Yeah,
And
right, right.
and I've always wondered, like, why doesn't someone just kind of split off? So anyway, but I'm glad that's worked out really well for you. To switch gears slightly to something a little more tactical, there's a lot of kind of rate baiting out there in the industry, loan officers competing on price. You seem to have a different philosophy about how to win business. Walk me through what you lead with when you sit down with a new client or referral partner to build trust and build that relationship and have them choose you and the value that you provide.
Yeah, that's a great question. A few years ago, I felt like the disclosures that we were getting were just confusing. So I was getting a ton of questions, and it almost made it look like I was like hiding something. Like, if you look at the closing disclosures and the loan estimates that are written up for us as loan officers, there's a piece in there that says closing costs, but it's a combination of closing costs and prepaid items, which is money that you're putting in escrow. So I think it's a bad term for that section, but it always makes it look like we're overcharging. So what I decided to do was, and this is kind of a COVID thing too, that I just decided to create a virtual office space where I could jump on a 30-minute call, set up a buyer consultation, walk through the numbers. And when you think about it, when you zoom out from the basic fundamentals of what people really want to know when they buy a house or refinance, the question is, what am I coming to closing with and what's my monthly payment? You camp out at the monthly payment and you reverse engineer it to where they're feeling comfortable. So I've gotten to the point where it's repetition, and it really, you can see the aura of comfort set in with the client once you do that. And I would say that with anybody. Like, a lot of people like to meet with their, like a lot of loan officers like to physically meet with their client. I think that's great. I just think for timing, and then also the fact that we can share screen numbers, it moves a lot faster when I can do that from a computer space. And also too, I mean, I'm licensed in a few different states, so it also makes me feel like I'm a little bit more boots on the ground anyways, if I can set up a buyer consultation with them. I think that's the number one thing that people are missing in today's market, is they're not taking the time to really get in front of the client and walk them through the numbers and really like talk out the door costs, throw it into a very simplified 1+1. And then from that point, the client will trust you, because the three things that clients will use you for is they know, like, and trust you, right? And that's the trust factor. Is once you get in front of them and you can, educate them on how this works, that works. That works miles and miles in front of like a lot of the other loan officers that I'm working with right now. I try to drive that home with my clients too.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow down to go faster kind of move. I think with all the online applications and everything like that, it can be very easy to get stuck in a mode as an originator to just get the next app out, and just try and get the next and play the numbers game, so to speak.
Right.
But when you do slow down, and just in my experience and talking with a lot of really top performing originators across the country, there is a pattern of creating these sort of mandatory consultative conversations that have been a turning point for their business, where they realized, okay, if I take this 30 minutes with this client, my conversion rate will increase, and it's worth it to do that so that I can convert at a higher level. If you're converting at 10% and you can change that to 30%, well, you just tripled your business, right? So it makes a lot of sense to make that pivot. Now, you're in Chicago, which is kind of suit and tie, fast paced, relentlessly like competitive. How do you stand out in a market like that?
I really approach the market as a value add, right? And I think it's weird. Like, probably 10 years ago, I picked up a drone, and then I started like working backdoor with because I got bored in the industry. I was working for a bank. My brother sold our company to a bank at that time. And it was just like, oh my gosh, put you in a box, right? And no offense to banks by any means, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't for somebody like myself, which I was big on marketing and stuff like that. So I decided to work backdoor with regards to, picking a drone and actually trying to add value to the real estate agents. But I also took the approach that I'm not just a drone guy. I'm a loan guy. So I was able to actually see listings before they hit, and that was really cool because I saw the listings, knew where they were, and then, not to mention, built relationships with agents. So my loan business took off pretty well at that point, and it was just all based on a hobby. It wasn't anything that I knew that was going to take off, but it was just because I was bored with an industry. So that just was one of those moments in life, another pivotal moment where I'm like, okay, so there's a value add here. Like, the agents love this stuff. So if I can add a value to them instead of just asking them to coffee, then they'll open up their doors to me. And that's what's happening right now, especially when you have a market like this where it's very, very competitive. They want the best of the best, and they don't want to talk about like what you can do and what products. They want to see how you can get them more business. And I think going back to the buyer consultation, like I was mentioning, one of the things I do is I add the agent on the calls. I think that's a huge deal. And I think some of the agents are resistant of it, but I think it's like setting them up for failure in some capacity, because if they know that their client has a little bit more cash to put it down, we can put that as a leverage tactic. So when I get on those calls, one thing I do is I say, okay, this is a two-parter. One's going to be making sure you're comfortable with numbers. That's absolutely number one. That's imperative. We have to have that happen. But the second part is, how do we structure your deal to win? Because in our market, it's super competitive where there's multiple offers. Like I had one the other day that had 60 offers on one place. I mean, that's like a lottery ticket if you win it. So how you structure it, how the loan officer calls the agent, how the team dynamics, how the realtor packages the deal with that call and having that buyer consultation, that's going to actually add so much more weight for the client to win and reduce their time at looking. And I think agents are starting to see that's actually a huge, huge value add.
Yeah, really smart too. Just it shows, they get a front row seat to how you're communicating with that client. There's kind of a almost a CYA element to it, right? Where where they know this conversation's taking place and everyone's on the same page. So it's like taking the group text one step further, and I think that's great. And speaking of like value to the agent, which you're a fellow podcaster, right? Loans and Drones, if I recall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right now you're kind of helping an agent build their own podcast, which means you're taking time away from yours to sort of invest in theirs. Like, what made you make that decision to invest in that way? And, are you seeing any fruits of that labor, or is it more just like a fulfillment of, just providing value in sort of a philanthropic effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I always do things. I'll do one new thing a year just to see if it works. And this is an agent that's a big agent in Naperville. Her name's Alice Chin. And so she asked me, she liked what we did. We've been, kind of rubbing shoulders at the DuPage Real Producers events that we're part of. And so we actually connected, and she liked the video style that we had. I had her on the podcast. She absolutely loved it. She felt much more comfortable with doing the interview style versus just directly in front of the camera, which I see a lot of agents like that. So I felt like that was a little easier way to approach agents with that. I have seen fruit of that from the other podcasts I've done. And also with Alice, we're starting to do business now. So it's not like something where you can use that as like, because that's a RESPA violation. You don't want to do that, of course. But she knows. I mean, I'm not doing it for my health. I want to be able to build a relationship. And these are one of those discovery moments where, like right now, the way we're actually going through her podcast is we're starting from year one of her being in the industry and taking each year one by one and explaining exactly what happened that year. So I know everything about her right now. It's crazy, but I'm also learning a lot too. So there is that piece too. These are one of those things where you just don't realize that they could be more of a divine appointment of teaching you something you really didn't know. But as I'm growing my business and I'm listening to what she's done and what she's felt like some pain points with, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to do that too. So it's kind of working itself all the way around,
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like you start to learn from what they've been through, and you start to find ways that you connect with somebody in a way that you didn't realize was there, right? And it's kind of like, wow, okay, you do that too, or I've been through that. Let's talk about it. And it does make for just a deeper relationship. So I think it's really smart what you're doing. Now, something too that I'm sure a lot of the audience could relate to is just a moment that you shared with me. You're at your kid's book fair, you get a call, and from an attorney that had you took the call because you recognized the name. How do you think about, I mean, you got 3 kids under the age or 6 and under. How do you think about availability and responsiveness as a competitive age, and balance that with family time and just being present and all of those
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, that's a constant struggle because I'm always in this office space. So my kids come in. I mean, they see me, but am I really present? I mean, that's no, not during from 9 to 5. I'm pretty much all in with work, and I will take time out. So I have been able to kind of cut like short some of the things I've done and block out some time. Last night Jojo, our 6-year-old, goes, "Come on, let's go to the park. I want to go right now." I'm like working on this fire, and I'm listening to her. She's whispering, so she knows it. She knows that I'm working, but she's like, "I want to go to the park right now." So I shut down my phone after that. We went for the park, and it's like those moments where you just cherish those, and you go, "What was I thinking?" What's 30 minutes out of the day? Nothing's gonna crash and burn. I should be able to give this because these kids' lives, they grow up so fast, and you know that obviously, right? It's just when we moved in this house, which felt like yesterday, Jordan was like 1 year old. So now she's 6. She's doing flips at gymnastics. I mean, they move so fast. So like about a month ago, I chose to try for the first time to really unplug, and we went to Naples and we're down in Florida, and it was one of the best trips for me just because of the fact that I was able to just be completely unplugged, totally engaged. And even Jordan, she said, "You know what I'm so excited about, Dad? I'm so excited the fact that you're not going to pick up your phone." So I made a conscious effort not to do that. Now I did make a couple of quick calls because I had a buyer that was about ready to jump ship because he was getting nervous, but that was like a 5-minute phone call and I walked away, so she didn't even know it. But those are just things you have to do. Remember, this is the reason why I'm doing it, is so we can go on vacations and actually unplug. But it's hard. I mean, it's just a constant battle. My wife stays at home, so she's raising the kids for the most part. I want to be that parent that's actually funding this to make sure that they get raised by my wife, who's amazing, and that's kind of where we're at. So we have both of our roles are working, but it's not without some pain. My role is I have to support the family. So it is a struggle, though. Guilt.
Yeah.
There's a guilt that goes along with it, I guess, is my point.
I totally connect with that, man. It's a builder's guilt, right? Like you're trying to build something so that there can be a bigger thing for the family, but at the same time it takes you away. I've been in the same situation for as long as I can remember. My wife has been a stay-at-home mom this entire time that I've been working, and since we've had kids, and it's been amazing for our family. And like, my wife is just a phenomenal woman, right? And
Yeah.
but
Right.
at the same time, like, this is our spring break and they're off having fun during the day. And I'm here, working and trying to make sure that we're ready to pay for college.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Right.
but at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right. Right.
Now, as we kind of get here towards the end, I want to just kind of highlight a few things that you shared with me that are just some tools that you're using, so that if anyone's listening to this and they're kind of struggling to find a tech stack that they can lean on, or they're looking for some new tools to enhance their client experience. You mentioned that you've got MBS Highway, strike rate, lightning estimate. These are not advertisements for anyone listening, but just, and maybe a
Right.
few other tools running at the same time. So when a rate dip happens, you're ready to rock and roll, right? Like, walk us through that window of opportunity and what that looks like when a rate dip does happen, and how those tools kind of work in concert together.
Yeah, that's like the biggest mystery for a lot of people, is how do you organize, a window of opportunity? And we have a top producing loan officer in our area who just has it down to a science. He has a CRM and everything. We haven't really gotten to that point as far as a CRM, but I just told myself, I go, how do I get estimates out as fast as possible? Because we use Encompass. A lot of people in the industry use Encompass just because of Maven, because that protects the lender, right? But it's slow. It's a slow system, and no offense to Compass, but if you're talking, especially after 27 years in the business, and you have thousands of people that you've talked to in the past, your goal is to be able to contact those people as fast as possible with an estimate so that they can make a decision. So what we've done is I've actually signed up for Lightning Estimate, which I like because it's very simple. It's created by a loan officer. The MI products pull over. You can do comparisons. One of the best things about it is that you can actually save the estimates. So if you miss a window of rates, or maybe the client doesn't want to take advantage of that rate, and then the rates pop up and they go back down, now you have something to kind of go back on and say, hey, by the way, we're at this rate versus the estimate that I sent you last time. So that's been very, very helpful for me, because out of sight, out of mind. When you have it sitting right there of an estimate that you've provided somebody and it's on a drop down, you're like, oh, this is super, super easy. So I'd be able to kind of run a little bit faster on the next round and get, on a weekend, probably lock 6 or 7 deals. And it was just a great opportunity. So that's been the biggest piece for me. I would say MBS Highway, for any loan officer that's brand new or even changing companies, one of the best things about that is I think it's like the best one-stop shop as far as marketing goes. You have strike rate, which literally pulls all your past clientele and gives you what their interest rate is. And then you can drop down and see where call those people and, make sure you follow up with them. But, it doesn't have all their contact information. So obviously you have to make sure you know them. But, when you see their interest rate, you'll find out where they are. That's the beauty of social media, right? So you just reach out to them and let them know that your rate is quite a bit lower. Let's talk. But that's huge for MBS. And then along with that is something called Home Report. So it's much like HomeBot, where it does a study on what your not loan value, but your home value is. It gives you ideas of how you can use your equity. And the number one thing people want to know when they're in this market, especially, is what is my home worth? Because once they see that, okay, well, maybe I can move and sell and gain some equity that I can put down on the next place. Or maybe if I got into some debt. A lot of people are in debt right now. So if you can utilize some of that HELOCs, we have a fixed rate HELOC, which is really good. But it's one of those things where that helps people in wealth management. So savings, that's our job as loan officers, is to monitor where people are and what we can do to help them save money. And that's one of those ways you can do it. So Home Report, strike rate. It also has list reports. One of the cool things with list reports too is it allows you to see the volume of the agents, like people that you're calling on. You can see who's doing business, who's not doing business, who your competitors are, who their agents are using. So as a branch manager, I like it because of the fact I can go, okay, well, so this agent over here is using this loan officer. I'm going to call the agent and say, hey, how do you like them? And if they're a good candidate, I'll call on the loan officer and see if I can bring them over. So that's how we've grown a little bit on our branch.
Yeah, very smart. Well, Bill, I've asked you a lot of questions, but I don't know if you've had a chance to say everything that you'd like to say. So I want to give you an opportunity, just kind of open the floor up to you. Is there anything you'd like to share before we put a pin in this for the day that you haven't had an opportunity to share?
Yeah, I think the very beginning when we started talking about my brother, one thing I missed was this. Hopefully, this sets in for some people that are listening to this. But he would say, bet on yourself. Because at the end of the day, we are all in some capacity entrepreneurs out there hustling, and if you believe in yourself, you'll do so much better. This confidence piece is what some people are missing right now. They just don't believe in themselves. So when he said that to me, and when you coupled it with "Don't be a lemming," that was that pivotal moment where I'm like, okay, enough is enough. Let's get rid of the insecurities and just get out there and hustle and be consistent. And it's worked. So I would encourage anybody out there that's out there in this market, bet on yourself, trust in what you're doing, be consistent, and you'll be successful.
Yeah, love that. Absolutely, man. Well, Bill, thank you for being on the lowdown and sharing your story with us today. Just wish you nothing but the best in the future and hope great things are coming your way.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Connor. Thank you so much for everything, and such a pleasure.
My pleasure, man.